So we think Tennessee football is pretty good this year. The AP voters think Tennessee football is pretty good, but ESPN might think Tennessee's better than all of us, right? What does ESPN say about Tennessee after week 4, college football playoff implications, and the best undefeated teams remaining? That and so much more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Arion. So happy to have you guys along for the ride. If you're new to the show, thanks for coming back. If this is your first show, hopefully you come back for some more. Pull up a chair. We're going to have some fun here. This is your number one spot for Tennessee football coverage, entertainment, news, every single weekday morning right here on Locked On Vols. You can find us free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That includes YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe and all that to continue to grow this show. Big shout out to FanDuel for being a part of the show. You can place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's over at FanDuel.com. Again, to get started today. So what does ESPN think about the Volunteers? A couple different stories I'm going to pull here, and we're going to discuss that in segment 1. And then I want to do a stock report. I did a stock report during fall camp. I want to do a stock report here on the first bye week of the season, maybe the second bye week of the season as well. Essentially, going to pick a Tennessee position. Since the year started, stock up, stock down, stock stagnant. We're going to do offense in segment 2 and defense in segment number 3. All that and more right here on a Thursday show. So ESPN put out 2 articles over the last couple of days, really since, I guess it would have to be since Sunday. One is projecting the college football playoff top 12 after week 4. The other is ranking the remaining unbeaten teams in week 4. So let's start there for this one. Tennessee, of course, is 4-0, joining several other teams that have a 4-0 record or a 3-0 record or whatever the case may be. If I were to tell you, where do you think Tennessee would be in this rankings? Well, we know that Texas is undefeated. We know that Alabama is undefeated. We know Georgia's undefeated. We know Ohio State is undefeated. Ole Miss is undefeated. Missouri's undefeated, but it almost lost in double overtime to Vandy. And some other teams are undefeated, but kind of where would you place Tennessee in this rankings? Alabama struggled with USF a little bit before pulling away. Georgia on the road at Kentucky, that was really, really confusing. Has Ohio State played anybody? ESPN has Tennessee at number 2 in terms of the unbeaten teams remaining. Number 2 behind Texas, who chimes in there at number 1. This is what ESPN has to say about Tennessee's number 2 ranking and its ranking of the last remaining unbeaten teams. The SP Plus and FBI rankings, 6th and 5th. The SP Plus strength of schedule to date is not very good for Tennessee. That is 67th, but we know, and we've talked about on the show over the last couple of days this week, that the remaining strength of schedule is 11th in the country, with obviously games coming up against Alabama and Georgia and some other teams down the line. What Tennessee did in week 4, it went on the road and beat Oklahoma 25-15. Last week's rankings in the same ranking for ESPN, Tennessee was at number 2, so no movement there. And this is kind of a section here that says why they're ranked here. Quote, in the first test against an SP Plus top 50 team, that being Oklahoma, Tennessee survived a loud Norman crowd with a strong OU defense and won comfortably. The Vols were content with taking a few offensive risks because they knew the Sooners were never going to score enough, and on defense now ranks first nationally in points allowed per drive. Tennessee's defensive front was absolutely dominant against mediocre teams thus far, though the opponent's strength ramps up considerably. After week 5's bye, the Vols play Arkansas, which has the 23rd SP Plus offensive ranking, Florida, which is 13th, and then Alabama's, which is 3rd. So that's kind of why, Tennessee, according to ESPN, is ranked number 2 behind Texas in its rankings of unbeaten teams. So Texas is 1, Tennessee is 2, Alabama's number 3, Ohio State is 4, Georgia's 5, Ole Miss is 6, Miami is 7, Penn State is 8, Oregon is number 9, Missouri is number 10, Indiana is 11, Louisville 12, Utah 13, UCF 14, Iowa State is 15. I'm not going to go through the however many they rank here. I guess it'd be 25. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all those. But I thought that was interesting. Obviously, Tennessee is considered a college football playoff not just a contender, but really a front runner at this point. And ESPN is really high on the Vols. How high is ESPN on the Vols? Well, they put out this other story projecting the college football playoff top 12 after week 4. Texas comes in here at number 1, obviously. Coming in at number 2 is Georgia. Coming in at number 3 is Tennessee. This is what ESPN has to say about Tennessee and its projection after week 4 of what the college football playoff 12 is going to be. And this, of course, is Tennessee's number 3 ranking. Why they could be here. Quote, for weeks, Tennessee's been passing the eye test, but the Vols finally added a statement win to their playoff resume, beating a ranked SEC opponent in a true road game. The Vols entered Saturday's game in Oklahoma ranked number 1 in the country in defensive efficiency and number 5 in offensive efficiency. That was evident on the field against the Sooners as quarterback Nico Iamaleava managed the game well in a tough environment, and the defense stifled the Sooners for the majority of the game. Another section here says why they could be lower. Quote, there could be a committee members who reward Ohio State for the playmakers at nearly every position. Running backs Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, Jeremiah Smith at receiver, so on and so forth. The Buckeyes racked up 9 yards per carry and 569 yards of total offense. I guess in whatever game they played last week, it doesn't say there. If Ohio State ranked ahead of Tennessee, it's because the Buckeyes are oozing talent, not because of whom they beat. And then this last section says need to know on Tennessee. This was an important win for the Vols because they still have to face Alabama and Georgia this season, their 2 most difficult remaining games. If Tennessee goes 0-2 against them, they need to hope the selection committee ranks Oklahoma because the season-opening win against NC State has already been devalued, and there aren't really many other opportunities against ranked opponents. So that's something to remember here. I mean, look at Tennessee's schedule, right? So far, Mississippi State is trash. Florida is trash. NC State looks like trash right now. Kentucky's not going to be highly ranked in the college football playoff rankings. So you took care of Oklahoma. You really, in my opinion, to feel really, really safe, you really need to win at least one of those games against Alabama or Georgia, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying Tennessee wouldn't get in at 10-2 with those losses to those 2 teams, but this makes a whole lot of sense. There's not a whole lot of opportunity on the schedule because just kind of the way it falls this year. Florida's not very good. Mississippi State's not good, obviously. NC State turned out not to be very good. Kentucky, again, like I just said a moment ago. So I think that's important to remember here. But when you compare Tennessee's schedule already to pair of top 25 wins away from Neyland Stadium, that is more than anybody could say that Ohio State has done to this point in the season. And Ole Miss for sure, and Missouri for sure. Those schedules are absolute cake. I guess Missouri played at Boston College earlier this year, but nonetheless. ESPN, the worldwide leader, very high on the University of Tennessee this year, very high on Josh Heupel's program, and there's a lot of people around the country that are very high on the University of Tennessee, and why not? With Nico at quarterback and the way this defense is playing, sure, there's going to be adversity. There's going to be tougher hills to climb, steeper hills to climb. That is no doubt about it. But right now, you're 4-0 heading into the bye week, and that is not a bad position to be sitting in if you are Josh Heupel. Hey, when we come back, we're going to dive into our stock report. We'll take a look at the offense side of the football first, right here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols. FanDuel Sportsbook, it is America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans, you can start the season off with a big return over on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you make your bets. All you need to do to get started is $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So place your first $5 bet, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus, you got futures. Look at Nico and the Heisman race and all that. There's a lot of stock on Nico right now because of the games and the teams he's about to face down the schedule. And he's already like 5th or 6th in the futures in terms of Heisman odds. So you can get those in on early. You can take early line looks at Tennessee and Arkansas next week and your NFL Sunday. All that and more is over at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel, it is America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, it's where you can make every single moment more. FanDuel. Hey, welcome back to your Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys all for being here, making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine. Kind of stinks, right? No football game this weekend, but if you're like me, you're going to use this weekend to really get some stuff done. I am officially moving this weekend to a new house. I'm still staying in Knoxville, but I'm moving to a new home. So instead of sitting back and drinking beer and watching a ton of football, hopefully I'll have internet hooked up by then where I can stream some football, and I'll have it on in the background while I'm moving and doing everything my wife tells me to do, because apparently that is what good husbands do. So I need to get that in my skull. So it's going to be a fun week in that regard, but a lot of you guys hopefully cook out, sit back, watch a whole lot of football, and it's never a bad day when you can sit back and watch football. It just stinks that Tennessee's not playing. So nonetheless, Tennessee will be on the road at Arkansas next week, and that's if that game was like right now or this weekend, I would say that's kind of a trap game, because look at where you just came from and then look what's ahead on the schedule, right? Florida. But the fact that you get a bye week in between there, I don't view this as a trap game. Now, is this a game where you can go in and sleepwalk through? No, it's not. I think it's an offense that's probably the best offense Tennessee will have faced at this point. I don't think it's great, but I do think it's probably the best offense Tennessee will have faced at this point. And they can pack a punch a little bit, but I don't think that they know how to finish games, and I don't think that there is as a complete team like Tennessee is. I mean, I think Tennessee's roster is significantly better for sure. So anyway, I'm intrigued to see how Tennessee kind of fares against the Hogs in Arkansas next week. So let's do this thing called the stock report. All right. We're going to go through each position group on offense here in this segment, and based on how it's performed over the first 3 or 4 games of the season, we're going to go stock up, we're going to go stock down, or stock stagnant, which is about the same. So let's start at the quarterback position. I want to go stock stagnant here, right? I want to go stock stagnant because I thought Nico was going to be good. Nico has been good. I am not shocked whatsoever. But I'm gonna backtrack here a little bit. He still makes throws where I'm just like, holy crap, what the heck are we doing here? That shouldn't be possible. I mean, the strike to Dante Thornton in stride there on the skinny post over that safety that came down trying to play the run inside the corner. Dante Thornton never slowed up whatsoever. That ball was perfectly placed. The throw that he threw to Chris Brazzell in the I guess it was the UTC game. Chris Brazzell over the middle in the UTC game. The throw that he had to Dante Thornton down the sideline against NC State. I mean, these throws are gorgeous. And his ability to extend plays, his ability to go and move the chains and give up his body sometimes. I mean, it's not been perfect. It's not always been perfect. The game has not ever been in Nico's hands just yet to go out and win it. But I have a feeling there's going to be some chances here this season to do just that. But I'm going to go stock up because, man, Nico's just been so much fun to watch. There's been nothing that I've seen from Nico that gives me any pause right now. So even though I'm not surprised in a lot of areas, I'm going to go stock up because he's still making plays to where it's like, oh my gosh, we haven't seen that here, right? We haven't seen that here. You just see that whole potential. Running backs, stock up. Two thumbs up. 2 stocks up, right? Because you lost Jalen Wright. You lost Jabari Small. And Jabari Small was a very good back here. He rushed for over 2,000 yards in his career. Jalen Wright rushed, I believe, for over 2,000 yards in his career. He had 1,000 yards, last year, obviously. You lost 2 very solid backs. You felt great about Dylan Sampson. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think everybody felt great about Dylan Sampson coming into the year. But the emergence of DeSean Bishop, where did that come from, right? I mean, heck, he's not only playing and contributing, he's looking good doing it. I mean, shout out to DeSean Bishop. I think Cam Seldon's going to be a fine player, but so many people continue to text me or tweet me and dive into the DMs later on, a couple of days after I asked for the mailbag questions and asking, why is anybody talking about Cam Seldon? Why is anybody talking about Cam Seldon? I mean, everybody's referenced it before. I mean, it's as simple as this. He was hurt. DeSean Bishop practiced. DeSean Bishop played. DeSean Bishop performed. And there's no reason to take DeSean Bishop out right now because he is performing. He is performing. He's earned it, and he's performing. And Cam Seldon hadn't been hit, really, since the UTC game. So I think Cam Seldon's going to be fine, but I think DeSean Bishop's emergence has really made that room really good. And I think Peyton Lewis is going to be good as well. So running back room, first 4 games of the season, stock up. Tight ends, stock up. Now, tight ends and offensive line, they didn't have the best day pass blocking the other night at Oklahoma. I recognize that. But the use of Stays and Kitzelman and 12 personnel, the use of Kitzelman and Space to throw the football, I think Holden Stays has been a really, really good receiving tight end, more so than I thought he would be. And Ethan Davis, I feel like, barely played, right? But they've been utilizing 12 personnel so much that a lot of times he's on the sideline. But even all three of those guys have found the end zone. And I think I've been impressed with Miles Kitselman and Holton State's ability to block in the 12 personnel. So tight ends, stock up. Wide receivers stock stagnant because I thought these wide receivers would be really, really good. And they've been really, really good. Sure, they didn't create as much separation against Oklahoma's DBs and all that. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But I thought Dante Thornton was going to bounce back, and boy, has he. Has Dante Thornton not bounced back in a major way? He absolutely has. I thought Chris Brazzell was going to come on and be a starter, and I thought Chris Brazzell was going to come on and be a great receiver here at Tennessee. And he was leading Tennessee in receptions, dating back to entering last game. Squirrel White hadn't even got going yet. And, of course, we know what Squirrel can do. Brew McCoy looks as explosive as ever coming off this latest injury. And then you have Chaz Nimrod, who's gotten a start this year. You have Caleb Webb. You have Mike Matthews, who missed the first couple of games of the season but went off against Kent State and, saw a little bit of action at empty set on the road at Oklahoma. Tennessee is deep at wide receiver. Tennessee's playing several wide receivers. They're playing Squirrel and Brew a ton, and then kind of figuring out that other third one. But I expected all this. So, going into last year, I thought Tennessee's receivers were going to be just fine, despite losing Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. But that stock was down last year at wide receiver. The stock is stagnant at wide receiver for me this year because they've done everything that I've expected them to do. And then here we get to offensive line. And this is where I'm going to go out and say, I'm going to get in front of this. What have you done for me lately? Okay? That's where I'm at. Tennessee's offensive line absolutely dominated against UTC, absolutely dominated against NC State, and absolutely dominated against Kent State. Sure, there's only one true opponent in there, and that's NC State. But still, against Kent State, you racked up over 700 yards of total offense in 2 of the first 3 games. The offensive line's been fine. But last week, Tennessee's offensive line did not protect Nico. Tennessee's offensive line made it a real struggle to run the football, especially in the first quarter. And sometimes it's going to be tough. And I tip my cap to those O-linemen and those Tennessee running backs for never shying away, and Josh Heupel for never shying away from the run, for pressing and pressing and pressing and finally finding success. I understand Lance Hurd did not travel and he did not play. I understand John Campbell continues to be injured and can't, play an entire game. I get that Larry Johnson was out there. I get that Dane Davis was out there. But overall, against a really quality opponent in terms of a defensive line and defensive front seven, I did not think Tennessee's offensive line performed very well. Okay? Does that mean I think that they're awful? No, I still think that they're pretty daggone good. And I still think they're going to be pretty daggone good, especially when the starters are back at tackle and they're playing, or at least one of the starters are back at tackle, right? But through the first 4 weeks, coming off this game where we live in a what have you done for me lately world, I'm going to go stock down. And maybe that's harsh, but I'm trying to be unbiased here, and the performance up front was not very good against Oklahoma, and I recognize, I don't know what Oklahoma's overall record is going to be, 8-4, 9-3, I don't know. I don't know what that offense is going to look like under Hawkins, who they're going to go with instead of Jackson Arnold. That offense is a train wreck. They're dealing with a lot of injuries, and I get all that. But that offense is a train wreck. That defense is good. I think that defense outside of Alabama and Georgia is going to be the best defense Tennessee sees this year, and maybe that defense will be better than one of Alabama or Georgia. I don't know. We'll see. But I think that defense for NC State's pretty salty. So I recognize the challenge was there. I recognize Tennessee was playing down a couple of cards in the deck because of the offensive tackle situation. I get all that. But still, I'm going to go stock down in that regard. What a way to end that one, right? What a way to end that one. Stock up at quarterback, stock up at running back, stock up at tight end, stock stagnant at wide receiver, stock down at offensive line. Let me know what you guys think. Overall, I think Tennessee's doing just fine. Tennessee's in a good position, and Tennessee's going to continue to be one of the better, more efficient offenses in the land as the season goes along. When we come back, we're going to do the same thing this time for the Tennessee defense. That's coming up next as we continue on here with a Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about our friends over at prizepicks.com. Prize Picks, it is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. We call that DFS, daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on the 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll on in. So take Caleb Williams, for example, okay? One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free dubs. Don't miss this deal at Prize Picks because when in September's gone, it ends. So that's Caleb Williams in the NFL. But essentially what you're doing here is making a grid. You got 2 to 5 spots on your grid here, and you're going to pick the statistical value of whoever. Are you going to pick the more than or less than? More than or less than? You're going to pick 2 to 6 players, and then watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks puts their members first. All the withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes. Plus, Prize Picks invented the Flex Day, which means that or the Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So, how do you play? Download the Prize Picks app today, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Put in that promo code LOCKEDONCollege on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Again, that $50 bonus is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Again, Prize Picks, LOCKEDONCollege is that promo code. All right, guys, we got a final segment left here of this Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. We're doing a stock report Thursday where we're going stock up, stock down, stock stagnant. We did offense in segment number 2 throughout the first 4 games of the season. Now let's look at defense. And I got a feeling all you peeps are going to be like stock up, stock up, stock up. And why not, right? I mean, Tennessee's got the number 1 ranked defense in the country right now. Boy, we knew. I mean, this has been the biggest surprise for me, like through the first third of the season. I knew Tennessee's defense was going to be good. I thought it was going to be much better. I thought they were going to be more athletic. I did not know that Tennessee's defense was going to be this dominant. And again, you always got to throw that disclaimer in there, right? NC State turned out to be nothing. Oklahoma's a train wreck offensively. Kent State and UTC, enough said. So, yes, we're going to see Alabama. You're going to see Georgia. You're going to see some, Taylon Green at Arkansas is going to be a much better test than any quarterback Tennessee's seen so far. So, I get it. I got to say that every week because, I can't just say here and say the Tennessee's the 85 Bears, even though they've looked like it against this competition so far. But let's give a stock report through the first 4 weeks of the season. Let's go position by position. Defensive line. It's stock stagnant again because we thought Tennessee's defensive line was going to be dominant. We thought Tennessee was going to play 13 or so guys on the defensive front because Rodney Garner does that. And so far, Tennessee has been dominant, and so far, Tennessee has played 13 or 14 guys across the defensive front. Take Jason Jenkins, for example. I mean, he played as few as 5 snaps. I think it was 5 or 7 snaps against Oklahoma and had a half a sack and a TFL and a half. I mean, goodness gracious. Take advantage of your opportunities. Jackson Moy was a man-child the other day at Oklahoma. I thought David Hobbs looked pretty good. Elijah Simmons from the get-go, play number 1, play in the backfield. Joshua Joseph's 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. And all this without James Pierce even getting going yet, right? I mean, he finally got a half a sack. He's missed a couple. He's still terrorizing some quarterbacks back there and making it difficult for those guys and, blitzing off the edge and all that type of stuff. He's leading, the Tennessee's defense with 10 QB hurries. But overall, the defensive line is exactly what we thought it was going to be. So for that reason alone, it's stock stagnant. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's certainly not bad. It's been dominant. But I'm not surprised by anything I've seen on the defensive front. Are you? Would you give it stock up? Because I thought it was going to be great anyway. So stock stagnant for Tennessee's defensive line. Also double-digit TFLs. Not just the defensive line, but double-digit TFLs for Tennessee's defense against the 2 Power 4 opponents in NC State and Oklahoma. Not bad. Linebacker, stock up. Keenan Peely's been much better than I thought he'd be. Now, there was talk all offseason about how Keenan Peely's look good and he's athletic, plays well in space, all that type of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I hear you, but this is a guy that's coming off his third significant injury in college. He's 26, 27 years old. Okay, he theoretically could be a 4 or 5 year NFL vet at this point in time. No joke. I just did not think that he would look as good as he's looked. I thought he would be good. I thought he would be a critical piece of the Tennessee defense. But gosh darn it, guys, he's been a shot out of a barrel, right? I mean, he's been everywhere, and he brings that meanness streak. I mean, he's what you want in a linebacker, right? Man, I wish I had half the athletic ability he had when I played. I mean, goodness gracious. So he's been good. And I think Arion Carter, if you take Arion Carter from when he was playing some as a freshman last year to Arion Carter now, completely different player. He's lighter. He's quicker. He's more instinctive. He's letting his reflexes take over. He's making some plays. I think Jeremiah Tielander's played good. I love the progression of Jalen Smith. I think Jalen Smith has leapfrogged Caleb Perry because Caleb Perry had to miss that NC State game because he was sick, and Jalen Smith got opportunity, took advantage of it. I think he's playing well. Edwin Spillman's getting critical snaps right now. I'm not saying I agree with it this early in his career, but he's getting critical snaps right now. This Tennessee linebacker room we thought was going to be big and we thought was going to have some depth, but the playmaking ability, and maybe it's just feasting off that defensive line, has been better. So I will go stock up Tennessee's linebackers. Let's go to the secondary. We're going to break this down into 3 separate spots. Cornerback, star, safety. Cornerback, stock up. I thought Jamal McCoy and Ricky Gibson will be the best part about Tennessee's defense, best part about Tennessee's secondary. I didn't think they'd be this dominant. Man, Jamal McCoy might be Tennessee's best addition from the transfer portal. He has been phenomenal. And for some reason, Oklahoma continued to try to target him the other day, and it's like, why? Why are you trying to throw at Tennessee's best cornerback? It makes no sense. He's been really good. I think Ricky Gibson has been good. I like Jalen McMurray behind those guys. Just not a whole lot of depth. So cornerback, stock up. Stock up. Safety, stock stagnant. Because I still don't think they've been tested over the top an awful lot. NC State didn't test him outside of one, and it was really a man-on-man coverage with Boo. Every time I want to say Boo Carter, I keep on saying Brew McCoy. It was one-on-one coverage with man-to-man coverage with Boo Carter. But they still haven't been tested over the top an awful lot. Oklahoma threw 3 passes of 20 yards plus down the field, and they were 0 for 3. So, I mean, they have been tested some. But in 4 games, it's not nearly been what I thought it would be. So, but I think they've been really good in run support. I think Will Brooks has had a really, really solid start to the season. I think Jacoby Thomas just flashes everywhere. I want to see him play more, man. I mean, goodness gracious. He's playing. He's in that rotation, but man, Jacoby Thomas, at least from a run support standpoint, has been phenomenal. Now, I want to see these guys in pass coverage over the top, deep cover 3, man-to-man coverage, whatever that is. I want to see these guys in that regard. But they've been pretty solid. I don't want to say that they've been good, like great, but they've been really, really solid. So I'm going to say stock stagnant. Certainly not a stock down. In fact, there's no stock down on this sheet that I'm looking at right now. It's been all ups or stagnant. And then the star position, I'll say stagnant. I think Christian Harrison, Boo Carter, of course, he got dinged up a little bit. Should anticipate seeing him back for the Arkansas game. But, Christian Harrison took advantage of opportunity the other day, played a ton of snaps against Oklahoma. Prior to that injury for Boo Carter, they've been splitting those reps about 50-50, right? Neither one of those guys have been making huge plays. I think Boo Carter's made some licks and some hits, and that's been good. Neither one of those guys have any picks or big-time pass breakups, but I think they've been solid. They've not been the reason why Tennessee's given up a big bust or Tennessee's given up a long touchdown, or they haven't missed a tackle that, spurred a 70-yard, catch and run or something. So I think they've been pretty solid. So I'll say stock stagnant for the Tennessee star position. Again, stock stagnant defensive line, stock up linebacker, stock up cornerback, stock stagnant safety, stock stagnant the star position. What say you? A bye-week stock report at each individual position offensively and defensively. Would love to hear from you at _Kaner at Locked On Vols, and of course on the YouTube channel. That is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here and making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine, making it your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. Make Locked On SEC your second view, your second listen and watch with Chris Gordy over at Locked On SEC. He does a fantastic job getting you set for a big-time weekend of Tennessee, of SEC football as Tennessee is during the bye week. We'll come back, conclude this week's worth of show on a Friday. No game to get you ready for, but we'll still talk to you tomorrow right here on a Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.